Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to all of you. Are you guys ready to explore the vibrant world of arts? If you are, this is the right channel for you. Welcome to Art Terrific. I am Ayowi Zen M. Ku,
And I'm Julian S. Lunas.
and we will be discussing elements of art. But before we start, make sure to grab a pen and a piece of paper because you will be encountering questions during the discussion. So pay attention and always be ready. Without further ado, let's now start with the lesson. First of all, what are elements of art? These are what we call the building blocks or the basic components in creating a piece of art. Without these, you cannot even start with your artwork. It's the same as when you are preparing a dish. You cannot cook something if you don't have the appropriate ingredients for it. One of the benefits of knowing the differences of all the 7 elements of art is that you can use it to analyze the artworks you see in museums or even on the internet. Because every artist have their own creative way of manipulating these elements to create a masterpiece. Isn't that amazing? There are 7 elements of art. We have shape, form, value, line, space, texture, and color. First is shape. Shape is a series of connected lines that creates a two-dimensional image. Remember that shapes are only two-dimensional. They are flat because they only have length and width. Shapes have 2 types. First is geometric shapes. It is also known as regular shapes. These shapes usually have symmetry and uniformity in their structure. They appear to be perfect, precise, and regular. They usually have specific names associated with them. Just like the example on the slide, you can easily name what kind of shapes are used to create an image of a house. We have triangles, squares, circles, rectangles, etc. Next is organic shapes, or also known as irregular shapes. Unlike geometric shapes, these shapes are imperfect and free-flowing. They are the kind of shapes that a person might find in nature like leaves, clouds, and flowers. Okay, so before we proceed with the second element of art, you will be answering a question regarding the things I have discussed earlier. Are you guys ready to answer question number 1? Let's go! These types of shapes usually have symmetry and uniformity in their structure. What is it? Is it organic shapes, geometric shapes, organic forms, or geometric forms? Please write your complete answer on your piece of paper. Now, for the second element of art, we have form. Form refers to the 3-dimensional nature of an art. It has height, width, and depth. Form can be created by producing an actual object, like a sculpture. While some artists use different techniques like highlighting and shading to create the appearance of form on a flat surface, instead of creating it through a physical shape. For question number 2. In the elements of art, shape is a series of connected lines that creates a 2-dimensional image. But what about form? Does it create 1-dimensional image? 2-dimensional? 3-dimensional? Or 4-dimensional? Now we have value, which refers to the degree of lightness or darkness of a color. Artists use this element to create contrast or to emphasize certain areas in a composition. In discussing value, we have 5 key terms that you should know. First is tint, which refers to the lightness of a color, while shade is the opposite of it, because shade refers to the darkness of a color. Next, we have light source, which is where the artist creates an illusion that a light is coming from a certain direction. Highlights are the areas where the light from the light source is hitting, and lastly, shadows are the areas where light is blocked and cannot reach. And for question number 3, fill in the blank. Blank are areas on an object where light does not hit. Is it light, value, shadow, or tint?
Now, let's talk about line. Lines are paths created by a moving point. They can be thick or thin, straight or curved. They guide the viewer's eyes across the artwork. Lines can have different forms, like curved, dotted, or broken lines. And it also have different directions, like vertical line, horizontal, and diagonal lines. Lines can also show different emotions and ideas depending on how they are placed.
A horizontal line suggests peace, calmness, and perfect stability, just like the horizon or a calm body of water. Meanwhile, a vertical line gives us a sense of strength and stability, like tall trees or standing pillars.
Lastly, a diagonal line suggests action and movement. Because it looks tilted, it creates energy, excitement, and sometimes even tension.
We also have a curved line that gives us a sense of gentle movement because it shows a gradual change of directions. It feels soft, flowing, and natural, like waves or vines.
On the other hand, a circular line creates an impression of abrupt change of direction. Since the line goes around and around, it feels more enclosed and complete, like a circle or a loop. Lines also have different types. First, outlines. Outlines are made by the edge of an object or its silhouette. And artists use contour lines to not only define the outline but also show the surface details of a form. Meanwhile, expressive lines are used to convey emotion, mood, or movement rather than merely describing an object's form. We also have sketch line. It captures the appearance of an object or an impression of a place. It's a preliminary line often drawn lightly and roughly that serves as a guide for a more finished drawing. Lines can be categorized into different types, and each type communicates in its own way. First, we have implied lines. These are not actually drawn, but our eyes can still follow them. They're created by a group of objects arranged in a way that makes us see a line from a distance. For example, a row of trees or footprints in the sand can form an implied line. Next are actual lines. These are the most straightforward because they're physically there. We can clearly see them drawn or marked on a surface. Implied lines are in a similar way, but instead of being physically there, they are created by our minds. Finally, we have calligraphic lines. These are decorative and elegant lines often seen in beautiful handwriting or artistic lettering. Lines are the most basic yet powerful elements of art. They serve as the foundation of every artwork, guiding the viewer's eyes and shaping the overall design. Now, let's try answering this question based on what we discussed earlier about lines. Which type of line creates an impression of actions in an artwork? Is it a horizontal line, vertical line, diagonal line, or a curved line? Next, we have color. Color are the way we see the light reflected from a surface or refracted through a prism. Color brings life to art. Artists use color to set mood and express emotion. we have three classification of color. First, we have primary. Blue, red, and yellows are what we call primary because they are the foundation of all other colors. You can create them by mixing other shades. They exist on their own. Think of them as the parents of all colors. Next are the secondary colors. Orange, green, and violet. These are formed by mixing two primary colors together. For example, red and yellow makes orange, blue and yellow makes green, and red and blue makes violet. Lastly, we have the tertiary colors. These are made by mixing a primary color with a neighboring secondary color. That's how we get shades like red-orange, yellow-green, or blue-violet. They expand the color wheel and gives us more variety to work with. Now, let's try your knowledge about color. Which of the following is not one of the three classifications of color? Is it primary, secondary, tertiary, or complementary? Next elements we have is texture. Texture describes how things feel or look like they feel. It can be actual texture you can touch, like rough bark or smooth grass. Or implied texture, where artists use techniques to make things in a painting looks like a certain texture. For example, a drawing of a cat's fur may look soft and fluffy, but in reality, it is just a smooth piece of paper. And lastly, we have space. Space is the area around, between, or within object. Artists use perspective to show depth and distance. Foreground, middle ground, and background help viewers sense distance in painting. In visual arts, space may either be positive space, where objects are placed, or negative space, where the empty area around them. Moreover, perspective is a technical means by which we perceive distance in painting, by which we are made to see the position of objects in space. We have different points of perspective. In one-point perspective, we perceive that the position of objects meets at one point on the horizontal line. In two-point perspective, we perceive that the position of objects meets at 2 points on the horizontal line. Finally, here's a quick question for you. In art, what do we call the empty area around objects? Is it positive space, middle ground, background, or a negative space? And that wraps up our discussion on the elements of art. We learned that these elements, line, shape, form, color, value, texture, and space, are the basic building blocks of any artwork. Each one plays an important role in helping artists express ideas and emotions. By understanding these elements, we can better appreciate not just how art is made, but also the meaning and creativity behind it. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you learned something.
This video is created for educational purposes only as part of a MOOC massive open online course in the subject Media and Information Literacy. The content presented, including images, videos, and references, is used strictly for instruction, learning, and academic discussion of the topic elements of art. No copyright infringement is intended. Learners are encouraged to consult original references and sources for further study.